Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to my stream. My name's Random Hamilton, and I am going to be continuing to work on some art today. We have a piece that we started yesterday, and we are just going to go ahead and continue to build on what we started. And, we'll talk art, we'll talk characters, concept, whatever you want to talk about. I'm really open. Definitely invested and interested in creating kind of a little more of a back and forth. Also, constructive criticism is very welcome, by the way. I don't know if I've actually mentioned that, but a little bit of adjustment here. So, earlier I had to cut out just a little bit early because my son was needed to get outside, and now it's that time of day for nap time, thank God. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've got a 2.5-year-old that I am the homemaker for, and my wife is a stylist, and she goes out in the world and does the hunting and gathering, so to speak. So there's nobody else. We got one person on the stream. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you on. So I'm just getting set up to start with our afternoon drawing here. Let me get my stream channels up so I can actually see what's going on with the chats. All right. Also, I hate my voice on re-record. So I've got to get used to that. That's a new thing that I never realized I was going to have to be accountable for, or think about. I mean, obviously you have to think about it, but it's pretty funny. All right, here we go. So, sorry earlier about having to cut out early. When you have a 2-year-old, when they say they want their walkies, you go on their walkies. It sets the whole day up in a much better way. So today we're going to continue on with the progress we had this morning. A little earlier we were working primarily on developing the hair for this character and the hand that's on the head. And I think that's kind of where we're going to stick in actually. We're going to keep progressing on the top and just work from there. Guys, if you feel free to say hi, pop in, say hello. Chat and interaction is always welcome, but not required. Let's dive in. So, where's my pen? Let's go ahead and use the blue tape to just kind of rough up the tip just a little bit, just to kind of open it up and make sure that it's not sticking, it's not getting chunky. Let's make sure you guys can see it's clear. Yep, we're looking pretty good there. Now, one of the things that I ended off with was I obviously haven't filled in the eyebrows yet. And the reason for that is twofold. I want to come through here and I really want to just try to, if I can, just around the center of the forehead, I'd really like to pull out as much of this information that's there. It's not so much that it's distracting, that it's going to be a bother with the pen, but when we put the black and the darkness on the eyebrows, that forehead really is going to benefit from the contrast. Oh. There we go. Much better. That forehead's really going to benefit from the contrast. And so, let's see if I can rebalance that lighting. It's a little too bright. Let's see. There we go. Better. All right. So now that we've actually pulled a little bit of that out, we know that when we left off, we were just solving for this guy right here. Just making sure that this connection felt good. And I'm going to go ahead and just add almost like the widow's peak. Okay. There. Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and start developing around these eyebrows. Now, one of the things I talked about earlier was, especially when you're going with the style of pen work, where we're going primarily using the Bic and we're pushing the ink on the surface of the paper through using Bristol. The big trick is to start slow. Don't overload. There's just no need. We can start working our way up to a darker finish from the base of the eyebrow up. And we're just going to do consistent pulled lines. I'm not pressing down. All I'm doing is I'm resting the pen on the paper with my hand, allowing the ink to hit the top of the paper, but I'm not pressing it into the grains. You have to think of paper as exactly like your clothes, because technically it's roughly the same way that it receives. Like things can dip into the crevices. Now with clothing, obviously it's woven. So your clothing is interlocking patterns of a bunch of different fabric. So let me keep this in this screen. Apologies about that. Let's keep it up here. With this, however, and because of that, because it's a bunch of interlocking, threads or material, gaps are created. Well, paper has lots of gaps. You don't think about it, but paper is very porous. And I'm working on Bristol, and Bristol definitely has a lot of porousness to it. Apologies if you can hear my son. He is currently fighting his nap. Just the way it be, Alright, let's see here. Just go check my... Alright, awesome. Welcome to the stream. Sorry, I'm going to go ahead and just pop a little hello to everybody in the 2 separate channels I'm streaming on, just to make sure that I am to this stream. Doing my due diligence. Okay. There we go. Alright. So back to what we were doing here. I am going to continue with developing the eyebrows. And the trick that I'm hoping will happen is that right around here, the eyebrows will just go from a heavy dark black to almost like fall off. And we'll allow the darkness go. Awesome. And we're just going to go ahead and allow this to get a little looser. There's really no need to keep things hard and crisp. It'll kind of naturally happen, right? So why force it? Our eye looks for defining contrast. We tend to kind of try to pinpoint exactly where things start and where things stop. And that's not a bad thing. That's just kind of the way that we interpret the world. It's a very common thing amongst just humans. We can control that. So by taking and thinking about that while we draw, we can start creating little holes, little intended areas where the eye is going to kind of get trapped, so to speak. And that's a kind of a cool way to create, not necessarily illusions, but cater to what the eye naturally does. And because of that, it becomes very easy to look at your artwork. Some people have a hard time looking at complex or art that is intended to have a lot of meaning or techniques that are, really elevated. A lot of people are kind of put off by art because they just don't know where to interpret, where to go into it, where to understand it. And what we can do is we can leverage that. We actually provide ease in the artwork. Now the context, the content, it's a little abstract. For a lot of people, they might look at this and be like, I don't get this at all, whatever, and move on. That's going to happen. But we are going to make sure that no matter who's looking at it, they have to do as little work as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some undershading. This is that point where we're bridging in the brow, but we don't need to worry too much about forcing. We're just going to add some shadow in. We're going to add some underlighting. Now we already started this shadow down here, and this was shadow that was running vertical from the base of the eye up to the eyebrow. And the reason I did that was I wanted to create a sense of verticality that led your eye up to the eyebrows. But you also have to keep in mind the eyebrow is doing some pretty important work here for me. The eyebrow is my means of communicating the character's emotion because he has effectively no top lid. So you'll notice that even though I have the top of the eye is kind of a rounded shape, there's no way to control that shape as in defining sad, mad, whatever we would do normally. I allowed that for the bottom, so the bottom has it, but the top really is kind of going to be a solid stock piece. So the big goal here for us is to go ahead and allow the eyebrows to be that emoter. So we have to ground the eyebrow, because the eyebrow being up there is great and all the pieces, but you have to think about the human face. The human face has a lot of depth, has a lot of height, and there's a lot of plane shifting back, front. That means there's a lot of depth on our face. So with the eyebrows sit out above our eyes, but they also sit out in front of our eyes. Think about where your eyes are at, and you take your fingers and go up. The first thing that'll happen is you're going to hit the inside of that bone, of that orbital bone right there around your skull. You have to bring your hands all the way out and then up to get to your eyebrows. So we need to indicate that there is some actual depth here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow that line that was the bottom of the eyebrow just to serve as the anchor point for a bit of a darker shadow. Now we don't have to worry about necessarily the shape of the shadow. We simply we're indicating for the sake of light that this is where the control of that part of the face is. This is where we're going to demonstrate a little bit, just a little bit of roundness. It's not essential, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no wrong way to do this part, but when you don't put it there, you as a viewer will recognize that something's just slightly off. Something that humans are amazing at. Humans are amazing at knowing when something is off. They don't know what it is. They can't tell you, but it's actually one of the coolest things about our eyes that nature provided us. Nature provided us the ability to look at something, measure it against memory, measure it against what we expect it to be, and then start identifying the things that are slightly off. An animal may see something and it's kind of a danger sense. Is this dangerous, yes or no? And that's fine. That keeps them alive. That's what nature's about. But our eye lets us take time and discern and then look at something and really study it. The practice of studying something, to look at something and clearly focus on it and study it, that's something that's actually unique to very few mammals. You know, it's just, you know, our creatures don't have the capacity to take that journey and think through something, you know? So, since we have that ability, let's use it whenever we can, and in this case, by doing those little steps. You know, yeah, the brows are dark, and yeah, if you look here, it's almost gone fully black, but there's a lot of brush information in here from the tip of the pen, and all we're doing is we're allowing the eyebrows to naturally create the shadow below it. You'll notice that when I'm dragging the pen, I'm not keeping the pen in between the lines anymore. I'm not trying to keep it out of the shadow area. I'm allowing it to feather, and I'm feathering the bottom of the brow right into that shadow. Now, if you get up really, really close to this piece and you look at that, it's going to look a little funny, but you take a few steps back and you see the piece at the intended distance, and it just looks like a natural fall off and graduation of that line into that shadow. Super subtle thing, not too crazy hard, just kind of one of those things that takes a little patience, a little control, a little time. For those who are on the channel with me, welcome back. Glad to have you here. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any ideas, please feel free to throw them in the chat, shoot me a DM. I'm just trying to build something fresh here, a community for artists where we can just sit, chat, talk, and eventually, as I get more people kind of talking and participating, I would love to have your ideas drive the content of this channel. I've spent enough time drawing my own ideas. I would love yours to help me create something new, and after 90 days, if we can get enough contribution, enough participation, I would really love to take the work of the last 90 days and put it into an art book that's available to all of our subscribers for free, or for once we find a publisher, we'll figure out how to deal with the sales part of that. But either way, we're going to try to keep it cheap, easy, accessible. That's the goal. Okay. Let's do this. So we've got the beard in, we've got the hair in over here, I've got the hair up top. We've got this brow in. I feel like we need to start playing a little bit in the shadows on these brows. You know, it's one thing to be able to lay the lines in, and that's cool. But if the lines aren't anchoring the opportunity for lighting and shadow, then you're not using the lines to the ability that you can. What I like to do is I like to lay in a line that defines essentially where the strongest point of the muscle is. That's not always at the base. Sometimes a muscle can affect an upper area, and that's not in shadow. But the more I add this kind of stuff in, the more the structure of the face will kind of naturally expose itself. Now there will be some shadow coming off from under the hair. We already know that's going to happen. I'm not too worried about that at this very second. You know, there's going to be lots of times where we kind of move on from part of the piece and come back to it later. And that's just the nature of the beast. And I'm hoping... There we go. I'm hoping that as we come back through here and we keep adding more and we massage this all together, you'll see it all kind of just line up and work as intended and kind of come to life. That's always the kind of dangerous part about doing stuff that's a little more abstract, which, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, my work leans into kind of naturally. You know, obviously I can draw form and figure and all that, but I don't know. I kind of look at real life all the time, so why would I want to draw it? That's not to say that there aren't some phenomenal still life artists, obviously. In fact, most of our great arts in the world are built from the representation or the interpretation of current life in real life. But I have always tended to lean into what's not there. It's not good or bad. It's just kind of where I kind of find myself, my grounding. So we're going to pull this up. Pull this up. Alright. Cool. Pull a little shadow from this area right here, because we know that they're right above the eyebrow. You actually have like a little bit of a shape. It's almost like a triangle, and it just has a dip in. And often, some people have a really pronounced ridge right here, so you'll see that kind of that skull ridge right there. I don't, but I also like to give it a little bit of attention via shadows, just to kind of pop out that shape. So I've been working as a creative for years now. I was actually working as a creative on the agency side for about 15 years. And I have just honestly found that if you're working in the agency world, it is a constant struggle to, at least as an artist, to create outputs that you feel resolved with, because often those outputs don't have opportunities for creative input. And as a creative, that kind of goes directly against a lot of the natural instincts that we have to affect the things in front of us. Now, obviously everybody has, self-control. And you should be able to do a job and work on something and not infringe your ideas and still accomplish it. That's kind of the goal, right? But I've always found that even if I can do that work, I don't find it very fulfilling. It doesn't feed the soul, so to speak, and there's only so many hours in a day. And when you're working at a job 60 hours a week, trying to hit deadlines, working in like an agency side of things, the room you have at the end of the week to then output creative work so you can feed that need is so hard. It's such a hard balance to achieve. And this isn't to make excuses. Plenty of people do it very well. I have met some insanely talented artists in the agency side that are just phenomenal, way better than me, hands down. But that's just maybe a weakness of my character, or something that I actually am kind of proud of. You know what? Let them be the person that is capable of balancing that. I have tried to not a lot of long-term success in agencies I've been in, and I just think I realized recently that just may be one of my great challenges I have to face as a person, and that's kind of formed the catalyst for pursuing this new streaming goal. Well, a big part of it is I wanted to stay home with my son. I did not ever realize that being a stay-at-home dad was going to be as cool as it is. Let me tell you, it is awesome. It is probably one of the most fulfilling things I've ever experienced in my life, next to marrying my wife, who's my best friend and just amazing. But so you notice what I've done here. I've kind of slowly built up the shadow around this area. Does it have to look in a certain way? Not really. Does it need specific shadows? Not really. That's just not important. All I'm doing is I created the foundation for the eyebrow, threw in some shadows, some darkness. This is where we're getting that real emoting and that personality coming out. And what I'm doing now is just diffusing out this eyebrow, and just allowing it to be a little bit messy. That's something, actually, S Comic Maker earlier was on with me, and she asked me a great question. She asked if if I photograph or if I scan my pictures in, and how I treat that. What I've actually learned what I've really started embracing lately is not scanning, or you have to scan, but not washing out my line work. I'm actually going to leave all of my line work and all of my pieces. I think it adds a nice depth and tapestry, and hopefully it can become something that I get good enough at to where it becomes a recognizable part of my artwork. It's something that I had always previously tried to get rid of because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I looked at artists that I admired, and that's the way they approached it, and so that's kind of how I treated it. And now in life, where I'm at now, I've come to appreciate the fact that that's actually just a very big part of what I do as an artist. And I was going through and kind of hatcheting my own work in an attempt to make the art, in my mind, more palatable to the viewer. And I think that when you stop trying to please other people with your art, and you just do you, and it's authentic, and it's you, somebody will see it in a way that you hoped they would. Not everybody. You're going to get pushback. You're going to get feedback. You're going to get people thinking that it's just not quite correct. Here's another thing I'm doing here. I'm just using my finger to pull and push and soften and drag around this ink. Now again, remember, we didn't push the ink down into the paper, right? So because of that, the ink's sitting on top of the paper. The ink actually hasn't soaked down in. I mean, it's slowly soaking in, but I can erase big if you don't press it down. So now I've gone through and I've smudged a little bit, and let's just go ahead and pull this out. This is a fantastic way to work in pen, but soften your shadows. All we're doing is we're pulling up some of the ink. We're not trying to get rid of it, but I'm just going through and I'm just allowing. There we go. Now it's a much better. I'm going to come back with pencil, and I'm just going to provide just a little bit of solid shadow depth with the pencil. All right. Alright, and then let's go ahead and pull a little bit into the eye and into the brow. We'll just allow that. There we are. This is also why I often call myself a multimedia artist. I don't feel obligated to follow the structure of pencil, pen, digital output. There's a time and a place for that, 100%. Absolutely is. I find for myself that my favorite work comes at a balancing act between the mediums I work with. So, you know, whereas one person may decide that they're going to put down pen and then erase all of the development otherwise. And that works for them. That's their style. More power to them. I've just always felt like my art thrives better when it lives in a shared space between pencil and pen. I can get the shadows I want. I can get the feeling I want. I can really kind of do a soft fall off right into the white of the paper through the pencil, but get a really nice transition from the ink into the pencil. And so the pencil becomes this really magnificent, almost blender. And I use my pencil work often as a blending means or as a basis for kind of creating a ground level of shading. So, you know, the pencil really can be a very versatile. I use red and green. Sometimes I use red and blue, but in a lot of my faces, you'll see me go red and green, and there's a reason for that. This goes back to color theory, y'all. Red and green are opposites on the color wheel, right? So what that means is when red meets green, they combat, they conflict, they neutral each other out. And take red and take green, a light version, really softly, and start layering them with some Prismacolor color pencils, and you'll see immediately that they bring each other more to a neutral, almost like a warm gray, you know, so to speak, the green and the red, depending on what you're using. I use red and green much in the same way. I allow the red to be the most prominent line, which I go over with my pen. When I come back into shadow, I'll lay the green in to be the soft rise of the shadow, and I'll use the red just to cap it off, just to kind of accent it. Between the two of those, that shadow, that line I've created, goes more to a neutral. And when you photograph it or scan it, that will read as a very soft gray. It's a cool technique. You just gotta kind of trust your hands. You'll not get it right at first, but after time, it'll become very normal. Very easy to manipulate. Drink lots of water, guys. I'm currently drinking 4 of these a day. So important. Well, it's also because I have 5 cups of coffee a day. So, if you drink lots of coffee, drink lots of water. It's just good health. Also, sit up. I'm going to have to change my drawing situation now that I'm doing it. I think I'm going to probably have to go ahead and get some kind of angled situation going on. Until that happens, and until a little revenue comes from the stream, we'll have to just sit in the hands and we'll deal with the back. I'll stretch every night, do my yoga, but definitely keep your posture good. Your posture is everything. Especially as a 40-year-old man, your posture is everything. Please keep good posture. It's so helpful. Okay. So now we've got some cool stuff going on here. The reason that it's this kind of teeter-totter back and forth is because it's so easy to overdo it with this kind of work. It's so easy to come in and just make big lines and changes and close off opportunities for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you know, the paper only has so much workability to it. You know, paper is grain, and paper will loosen as you work it. And so if you're not careful, in the process of doing all of your work, you can really start deteriorating the surface you're working on. And so my big suggestion often is to think about everything you're putting down as just one stage to the next. And if you can get used to thinking in kind of like phases in the way you do your work, it allows you to get kind of cheeky, and that's where the real fun experimentation comes in. Because you try something different that you didn't try last time. Try a different approach, try a different pressure, try a different combination of materials. But you're still allowing yourself the room to be able to finalize in the way that you'd like to finalize. And that's what I mean about not closing off your opportunities. Don't overdo it and then realize that, oh, well, I can't use my pencil overlay this time because I went too hard with the black. Oh, I can't blend that through because that's way too dark. There we go. So we've got this super cool little ridge, this little white hot ridge right there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and give this one nice tight line. Cool. All right. How are we feeling about that? That feeling good? I feel like that's got like a nice amount of like detail in it without going overboard. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to lift. Actually, let's go ahead and invest a little bit of red into this nose real quick, just to offer some hue. There we go. Beautiful. That's what I wanted. Just a little more neutralizing with the green. I like allowing there to be actually a little visible red around the nostril. Just kind of indicates a little closer to like what we see in real life, that pink. Well, I guess you don't really see a pink in most people's nostrils, but whatever. Ignore that. Alright. Let's go ahead and bring up a little bit of the back shadow on this cheek. Let's finish let's get the face knocked out, okay? I mean, we're pretty close in the hair, we're pretty close in that top hand. We still have to do the hand on the back side of the head. So let's go ahead and just provide ourselves an out for this section. Okay, we're gonna go super light, right? We're just pulling up some ink. But the reason that we're doing this is because it is sitting right against that beard, and that beard is a morass of line work. Morass, right? Good word, right? Totally. Good word. Probably not the right word. Whatever. By going through and slowly building up this back line, we're going to create the basis for a really strong, hard black cut from a micron. and that's going to pop that cheek right out in front of all the hair, which is kind of what we're going for here. Make sure you guys can see that. You can. Okay, good. All right, so we're pushing. Alright, that looks pretty good. And we're just going to go ahead and now come through a little more vertical. Now, something you'll notice, I kind of took the liberty to kind of lock this hard line in here, and nobody's cheeks have a hard line, right? There's no hard line that separates your cheeks and your upper and lower. But, in this case, I'm going to have a pronounced shadow in that corner, so you're not going to really even recognize that hard line. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. I think this is one of those times where I throw in my honest and probably going to be one of my most common sayings on my channel is there is no right way to do it. I cannot stress that enough. Every person's method, if they can get there, is doing it the right way. Okay? Even how I'm inking right now, I guarantee somebody else inks with a Bic pen entirely differently and they'll probably blow my mind. It's okay. You don't have to be shooting for perfection. You don't have to be shooting for flawlessness. You don't even have to be shooting for good. Your technique is really simply the method at which your hand and your eye and your mind have all decided that it communicates in the way you want to. Because again, as an artist, we're storytellers. That's what we are. We communicate a goal with how we approach visually telling a story. So however you get to tell that story is the appropriate way to do it. There's no real magic to it. It's just you kind of put yourself in a position to tell the best story you can. Go. Now we're going to pull in a little bit of this red to help neutralize this, and because we've already used red earlier on the skin, this just really defines that this whole shadow area is for the skin, and that's an important thing. All about there it is. And now let's go ahead and get the back shadow off the top side. I kind of made a shape there already. And this is what I was talking about. You can blend any hard line you make right out of the picture. The trick is you have to do something with the opportunity that's presented. Because there are no mistakes. There are just unexpected opportunities. Now, I say that not saying that something can't go as not planned, because that happens all the time, right? We plan for the art to go in a specific way. It doesn't mean that way. That's fine. The trick is to not get too caught up with the way you think it's supposed to look. You're never going to get there. You're going to always have things you don't like. So if you can find a way to be okay with where it does go, all the better. All the better. So we've now taken that really hard line that was on the face, and we've brought it into something that is a little more akin to a response to the hot curve. And then we're going to go ahead and we're just going to kind of start working this in. Blend it in, blend it in, blend it up, blend it in. Now I'm going to bring my eraser in here and just work it back out. Because again, this is why we stick and play between these mediums. We're staying on this. We're staying on the surface. We're not pushing and forcing anything down into the art. Here's another hard line that I had laid in earlier on that may not be as beneficial as I want it to be, but what we can do is we can blend it right in. Into that eyebrow. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, is that intended or is that ideal? Nah. You know what? I don't like that extra line there, but whatever. We'll come back to it if we need to. We can worry about it later. For the most part, we've got the face where we want it to be. We're in that space. So let's go ahead and solid up this ear. To those of you that are here today, thank you very much for joining me, by the way. I very much appreciate your participation and just kind of being here. This is a really awesome motivator to see people chilling out in the chat. That's nice. So, hope you're enjoying yourself. Give me ideas, suggestions, thoughts, concerns. Please feel free to share them. Open the DM, direct message. Anything you feel that would improve the quality of our stream, my stream, our stream, I would love it. So again, thank you for being here, and we'll just keep on cracking on. think we've done enough in here. I mean, I could still, of course, push on the hair. That's a possibility. I mean, it's not quite where I want it. It's not bad, but it's just, I don't know. We'll see if I come back to that. That can be a thing. How about we go ahead and develop these arms? And let's develop the backside of the head so we can kind of cross this off our list. And then how about we do the tentacle? That'd be fun. So let's go ahead and start with this hand. I talked about hands quite a bit yesterday, but for our new viewers, I'll go ahead and just give a quick overview. There's just no right or wrong way to do hands. Hands are complex. Hands have a lot of unique planes. Hands have a lot of unique muscles. And for a lot of people, because of that variation, hands can be very challenging. The trick with hands is not about drawing the hand exactly right. The trick with hands is to draw the hand landmarks that provide the shell. And what I mean by that is the overall silhouette. If you can create the proper and expected shapes and silhouettes from the hand, you can draw hands. The trick is not about getting every finger right, every knuckle right, every digit right, the trick is looking at the structure of the hand and getting the major forms in. So, we know there's 4 knuckles, we know there's 4 fingers. Instead of drawing each finger, draw the line between the fingers, and then once you have those in, then the fingers simply follow as a thickness. Because the middle finger is always the thickest of the finger. The ring finger is the same thickness as your index finger. So there's a few little things that you can look at and kind of go, oh, okay, this is how this works, this is how this works. And if you get used to thinking about the hand like that, it becomes a lot less complicated to just draw a hand from any angle. You just have to remember that everything has form. Everything has to be present. Fingers have thickness and length. The hand itself, you cut the fingers off and just like the hand itself is literally a square with a wider back, so kind of a larger taper at the back. When I started learning how to model 3D and I had to model some hands, it was so eye-opening how a modeler goes about modeling. Because a modeler literally takes a block and starts building blocks, and then starts softening it. And it just made perfect sense. And it is something I really struggled with before I had done 3D modeling, but afterward I knew, I got it. Okay, so now, not only do we have hands here, we also have this hair that's being grabbed right here by this hand. And in fact, I'm going to have to go through and do a little more intense work around the back of this hand, because this hand is grabbing and wrenching on this hair. And I've got that nice hard black line there ready to receive. And we're just going to let the hair go super dark there, so it kind of insinuates that it's wrapping underneath the thumb that's grabbing onto it. And that allows us to kind of create almost like a sense of pulling via the shadows. Oh, that was too hard of a line. That was silly of me. That's okay. I'll go ahead and just let it follow up with the contour of the beard we created. There. Now, that nestles nicely. Alright. Yeah, and I mean, guys, and gals, whoever's here, welcome again. Let me be the first to say, unintended lines are a natural way of life when it comes to working with pens. You cannot escape it. I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you are considered one of the current masters. I don't know who those are either. I'm horrible with names. But pen work comes with error. They are bedfellows. They are friends. They are a required combination. You have to accept the fact that your pens are going to do things that you can't expect. There's a reason that erasers exist. Schechter, I don't know who you are. I know you're only very poorly, but I want to say that you are well done and you will succeed. Good luck. I probably won't wrote this, but have a good day. Hey, you know what, Schechter? Thank you very much, man. You know, you wrote it exactly perfectly. I think it does not matter if English is your first language or my language is not one you're familiar with. If you can understand me, I just want you to know that I really appreciate that support. That's extremely helpful. You know, thanks. It's just about communicating ideas, and if we communicate ideas, then we're all doing something right. Thank you so much. I'm going to respond real quick in the chat, guys. Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's keep pushing. Here we go. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to be looking down a lot, so if I miss your chat, give me a second. I'll try to keep my eyes up and take a look. Kind of a contrast of looking down versus over. All right. So we've really kind of locked in this whole section of the head really beautifully. But now we need to go ahead and figure out what's going to happen with this beard. Now we already have a great example, right? This hand down here is grabbing and twisting the beard. And so the hair is distorting and flowing into the grasp points. And you'll see right here, I've done the same thing. I could have the hair flatly coming in, but generally when somebody is grasping hair, when you're grasping and holding on, life of Hamilton. Well, thank you very much for the follow, Life of Hamilton. I have a feeling that is my wife, Kelly, so that's extremely sweet if it is. Okay, so you'll notice that the hair is kind of funneling into this one spot. And the reason for that is when you grasp and you squeeze. And when you squeeze, you compress. So anytime that anything is pinching into your hair, there's always a compression. Think about when you put like a braid in, or if you do like a ponytail. You grab that hair and then just squeeze. That's amazing. Where are my notes at? Yeah, I still gotta get used to emotes. I'm not sure if I had to do already. I'm fairly new to the whole Twitch streaming thing and YouTube streaming thing, so we'll figure that out. Anyways, thank you, my love. I appreciate that. I'm glad you are able to hang out while you're doing hair. It's awesome. My wife works as a hairstylist. I work in a salon, and her day is all over the place when she has clients. Okay, so back to this. Let's get this hair solved. So we know that we have the hair coming into one spot. We know then that that highest point of grasp is probably right here. So now all the hair on this side has to come out from there. And so I'm just going to start. I already kind of laid in some red pencil, and it's not really committal, right? It's kind of all over the place. So I need to go ahead and just start making some decisions. I need to start deciding if I want to. Yeah, that works. So just be like that. That's better. For whatever reason, I had this feeling like I wanted to have this other strand coming from another direction, but it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't read well with what we're trying to get across. So let's go ahead and put this guy here. Awesome. There we go. Let's pull that up. Yes. Now, it's okay that this looks like a morass of lines, because it genuinely is, but that's alright. Because what we're going to do is, by adding just a little bit of shading, you'd be amazed at what happens when pen lines go into a consistent direction. The eye tells you that's correct. It's this really cool thing. And we're just going to constantly over-index and leverage. Oh man, he's great. He is, apparently. Can you hear him pretty well? Or is he kind of quiet? Let's see, let's ask. Let's see. Is he too loud on the mic? All right, back to it. Pulling. All right. You know, I gotta say, I'm not too bothered by this. Let's see, I can load. Okay, I'm not too bothered by this license-free music. It's actually pretty good. You know, something you learn when you start doing this stuff is you cannot play normal music on stream. You will get your account banned. Legalities and all that. So you have to use non-licensed music services. This is one that I am using through the streaming service, and it's pretty good. Okay. At least it's enough to convince my mind that it's setting a nice audible pace. In my early years when I was in college, I would go spend a lot of times drawing in coffee shops, and I really enjoyed sitting myself up in a coffee that was not too far away from the cash register, so I would enjoy the opportunity to sit there and people watch. You know, one of the things I found, you know, your natural inclination if you're drawing and doing stuff, you kind of want to go and hide off in a booth or a corner somewhere. But I've always found that doing art in a public place offers people a really great in to start conversations with you. Because people want to ask questions of artists. You know, creating artwork and doing it in a committed fashion in a public space is something that most people recognize, but most people aren't around. Like, think about that, right? If you're an artist or you're a creative, people have seen artwork all over the place, but they haven't seen artwork created all over the place. And when you present that opportunity, for a lot of people, it's just a fascinating opportunity to ask questions that they normally just don't have the chance to ask, and really settle some curiosities they may have. And even if they're not a fan of the work you're doing, the process and what's occurring is pretty exciting for a lot of people. I don't know how exciting it is to sit here and watch me draw as I kind of talk through it, but you know, for me, it's a great inspiration to be able to have people kind of watching as I go, and it's forcing me to really not worry about mistakes and just accept what's happening. I mean, I'm working in pen, so I can't do much about it, and so it is what it is. Alright. So I think I'm going to leave the hair of the beard right there. I think it's feeling good. It's, if I'm being honest, I don't love it. But what am I going to do, right? I've already put the ink down. I've already placed everything. So now the best thing I can do is just massage it. What can I do to make myself love it? Well, I'm going to pack a little red into it, so it's going to feel more solid. That's something else. When you're working with Bic, no matter how soft or hard you go, it always looks like there's like a little bit of space left, little holes. And that's because there are, because the Bic is respecting the tooth of the paper below it. But what I do is I like to go in with a little colored pencil. Colored pencil will go ahead and smooth all those available holes out. And then, yeah, that's great. And then it lets me go ahead and just kind of blend all that a little better. All right, yeah, that works. Okay, let's get this hand done. This hand is asking to be done. All right, let's see here. All right. Start pulling in some shadows on these fingers. Now, we're going out of our way to keep these arms a little lighter. I've been smudging all over this thing with my hand when I've been drawing. So I'm just going to go through and just pull a little bit of the loose pencil off, just so that I can have as clean of a visual here as possible. We're also going to make this nice little peekaboo shape right here. Just in a moment. For those who can hear my son in the background, I have a 2-year-old at home. I'm a stay-at-home dad. So he is currently attempting to take his nap, so apologies about that. Okay, now we are just laying in our general line work for this upper area. As always, I stress there is no right or wrong way to do any of this. It is an impossible request to do things the right way when it comes to doing art. It's just not the way it works. It's got to be the way that makes the most sense to you. To me, that's always denoted the right way. How does this communicate to you? And how does it tell the story that you are intending to tell? Because that's what we are. We are storytellers. We are crafters. Do you ever think about that? Historically? You know, when you put your digital artwork online, when you put it on your website, when you put it on Instagram, you're putting your artwork on the cave wall. You know? Does that sound weird? But it's true. You know, we are replicating a pattern of a habit and a pattern of activity that has been done since the beginning of mankind. When we create art and we put it up into the world, or we save it, we make it and then place it somewhere where we feel that it communicates the way we want, we're replicating a process that's been done since the beginning of time, for humans anyways. So, when you make art, you're a part of the human interpretation of your period of time. You know, what you create is a reflection of where we're at in the world right now, which is pretty awesome. All right. I know I'm going to have shadows there. I know I'm going to have shadows there. Shadows, 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 all shadow, 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 shadow on the back side of the hand, shadow right here, a little bit of shadow there. Definitely shadow around the bottom of the ear since the ear is resting on the hand, which was a nice little fun touch that we did. We're going to add the underside. This is where the wrist turns, and then your limbs and tendons are down there. This goes then down to the muscle, and we're going to go ahead and allow that to be shadow. And then shadow, shadow, shadow. We're going to keep this mostly light up here. You know, there's definitely like an indent right here on your hand. And then we're just going to go ahead and let that bleed up. Yeah, that works. Okay, next, let's look at the arm underneath it. This needs to all go to shadow. This can all go to shadow. Shadow, shadow, shadow. There's definitely going to be a shadow from the arm above this one because they are right in front of each other. And we haven't really defined a light source, and that's okay. Like, sometimes it's really important to define your light source in a piece, and sometimes it's just not. In this case, you know, we're working with a very abstract image and approach to an image. We're not going to define shit. We're just going to allow it to be communicating the shape of the arm, not necessarily where the light's coming from, if that makes sense. Okay, so this is all, that all has the potential to be shadow. Maybe we should take an opportunity here and open this up. Maybe this can actually be a little white hit. Oh, that works. Okay. Alright. See? This is why we experiment. We play. You might not be able to see that very well due to the green pencil, right? But let me show you what happens when you put a little red pencil on this. Alright. Alright, that works. Let's go and hardline this arm in. Keep in mind that this arm is connecting to this piece up here. So you have to really kind of watch that angle, because if you don't, it's going to look like the arm literally like breaks behind the arm in front of it, and it just kills the readability. And for some people, that's a very stark visual problem they have. I think one thing I might start doing this week, I think I've started learning already that I can't just, you know, there's some real work that has to go into prepping your channel, making sure that your channel looks professional and clean and your assets and everything. And I think that's going to be a big goal of mine this week, is to go through and really start learning the tools available to me for my channel to make sure it is pretty to look at and consistent with what I'm putting out as possible. New ventures, new exciting stuff. Okay. Alright, we got our arm in. Let's start working on these arm shadows. Alright. This is one of those times where you have to jump in, you know? Don't worry, some things are going to go wrong, but just jump in pen first. We've laid down the fundamentals. Trust yourself. Trust what you're going to do. Long lines, very soft pressure. Okay, so we're gonna take and we're gonna pull the ink along the paper, and just not push it into the actual paper itself. So let's just start here. Pop my head over to check out chat, make sure I'm not missing any text in any chat. No? Good, perfect. All right. And again, we're just slowly building up these shadows. You know, with skin, you have to be really careful. Like, again, lines are going to happen. Sometimes you're going to go overboard. It's cool. It's not that big of a deal. But there are times, in my experience, where you can kind of unnecessarily create challenges for yourself when it comes to skin. And the problem there is we all kind of know the consistency and the qualities of skin innately. It's kind of a natural human thing. We understand it. It allows us to then be safe, so that when we see incorrect skin, to be wary of it. You know, that's kind of it's one of the natural human superpowers that we were provided by nature. Is that as communal creatures, we are able to recognize when something is not quote-unquote considered normal. Now, unfortunately, in today's day and age, you know, and actually all throughout human history, that capability and perception has been abused, and that will often be used to hold it against somebody who's different and then treat them in negative fashion. That's not quite what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the ability for you to understand when something is different. So not attaching good or bad to it, not attaching any expectation or anything like that, but naturally, as a human being, you have an innate capacity to look at something, someone, especially if they're human, and start deriving information from them immediately to define if something is safe or not safe. It is just a human quality that is present in us all. And what that also means is that when you see representations of skin or bodies or people, your eye immediately begins to start to define what you're looking at. And so if something's off, you can tell right away that something's off. And so that's what I'm talking about. It's really about trying to give yourself as much room, as much of a yardstick to play with, and not overcommit it. Because if you overcommit, then you have to compensate. The less compensating you have to do, the better your work will be. It's because it's more in line with what you're hoping or expecting it to be. Remember, when we're working in traditional media, everything is additive. Now, again, we erased earlier, we pulled some highlights out, and that's okay. That's fine. But, here, I'm going to do this so I can actually look at the camera and talk. That's better, yeah. But at the end of the day, everything adds up. Everything is, connected. And so the trick really is to not give yourself more work than you need to do. Especially in a piece like this, where we are going to spend a ridiculous amount of time shading. But maybe this is why this is I love this style of art. I love doing traditional and mixed media because I'm just trying to create as many opportunities for interesting oddities while still following the rules of reality. Does that make sense? Right? Align to how things are supposed to work. Don't fight it. But I try to find ways to embellish. And if I can embellish in really interesting ways that I can capture and control, well, I guess that's my style, right? I guess that's what I would define it as. It's not necessarily what I call my style, but clearly it's a repetition of qualities and techniques that I use, so there you go. For those who just joined my screen, welcome. Welcome to the channel. We're here working on a piece of art we started this week. Any questions, comments, concerns, ideas you have, please feel free to throw them in. I'm very open to suggestions right now. We're building from the ground up. This is my first week streaming. First week sharing art online like this, to this degree, and kind of showing the problems and all the things that can go wrong. So please, any contribution from yourself as far as ideas go, super welcome. Super receptive, and I'm just looking forward to keep building and drawing. So welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. Okay, we are slowly going to start building up this core shadow. What you'll notice is what you'll see me do often with skin is, and this is, you're going to see this for as long as you watch the channel and I'm drawing skin. I'll lay in all the shadows with one direction. I'll come through and I'll just start laying in all the subtle tapestry of shadow lines, and I try to stick with it fairly consistently. Fairly long lines. I want your eye to follow the shadow from the darkest point to the lightest point, and your mind's going to tell you, oh, that is an incline, or oh, that's a decline. And if it does neither of those, that's totally fine. It's just I didn't communicate it to the degree that I probably needed it to, and that is more an issue on my part than your reading of it. And that's also just part of being an artist, Sometimes you try really hard to use the techniques to insinuate or define a certain look or a certain feeling or a certain light or a certain dark, and sometimes it just doesn't come across, and that's okay. We're just trying to share some ideas. We're just trying to share some thoughts and perspectives on what we do and who we are, and that's what being an artist is you sharing interpretation, perspective, ideas, stories, all the things that make up you. As an artist, you are allowing people into that bit of a world that every human being has, but you're opening a door visually that it may be one of the only ways for you to truly tell that story. I know I certainly do. When my wife sees this kind of art, she likes it, but she tends to be a little bit more, feel that it's a little too dark, or just feel that it is a darker representation of where I'm coming from. And I think sometimes that's true. I think I get a lot out of putting my feelings on paper. I used to work with a nonprofit with at-risk youth. And I was their, non-formal but formal art teacher for a portion of my employment there. And we would use art not as, hey, let's make a really cool picture. We would use art as a very tangible method to get them to start putting their emotions and feelings down on paper. Now, that wasn't as a replacement for all the work that was going to have to happen, but it worked in that environment, in that context. Okay, I just realized something that I think a keen-eyed artist would notice. This should be over here. If we think about the way the bone... Okay, actually correct that. This can be right here, right? I can have that right there. That's fine. If if we were grasping the head like this, and then the arm comes straight down. So that can be there. But that means this line doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to go ahead and... I don't know. This may be one of those things where we just kind of leave it and don't explain it. That happens. It's a thing. I'll find a way to deal with that later. Don't worry about it. Alright, let's see. So let's keep going on this arm. Now, I did a bunch of angled lines on that shadow, and this is where it's going to come together. Now I'm going to go ahead and start pulling this vertical. Now remember, I have a bunch of ink that I loaded that's just sitting on top of the paper there. All those horizontal lines, that's just ink that's sitting on top. It's not even really ingrained down into the paper. So all I have to do is pull it. I did the hard work, I laid it all down, I created the opportunity, and now I'm just going to take advantage and pull it down. I also love the sound. There's also something really cool when you're drawing the music like this and there's a beat. If you have to do this kind of repetitive, long line quality, one thing you can do is time your strokes with the beat. You can do single, double time, depending on the song. But I find that it allows you to kind of get into a nice rhythm without having to think too hard. Now, one thing you're also going to notice is I'm going to allow certain shadows to start taking more prominence. And that's because our muscles and our arms are complicated. There's lots of stuff going on there under the skin. There's lots of depth and lots of, different areas that have rises and falls. Now, I'm probably going to be wrong on some of this as far as the way the structure goes, but nobody's going to really notice because you're going to see it and go, oh, of course, that's how the arm works. Now, if you took and looked it up against like an anatomy book, yeah, there'd probably be some challenges, but that's okay. It doesn't always have to be flawless. It just has to tell the story. And I believe the story is very well on display. I'm going to go ahead and allow this area to get a little darker. We're going to go ahead and lean into this updated change we made. By leaning into that, I mean I'm going to go ahead and validate that line I made by creating a bit of a pop-out. Again, the eye recognizes this as a definition for a muscle, right? When you see a darker shadow that has a much deeper line, you go, oh, that's a point where the muscle is attached to the tendon, and then that rise is the muscle that they've built that's lifting up and pushing the skin upward. It's all just an arm with a bunch of shit attached to the bone and layered up. You think about the body like you think about Photoshop. Everything is layers. Everything has its position above the next thing. You go to the bone. You go to the muscle. You go to the circulatory system. You go to the skin. And then on top of the skin, you have the freckles. You have all the skin damage. You have all the things that make up our lives that have brought us to the point where our arm is what our arm looks like. Now again, we're working with pen here, right? So the more I put down, the more I have to accommodate. That's not to say that adding this kind of stuff is bad. Just add it and accept the fact that it's not going to always add in the way that you would like it to. And if you can do that, you'll be ahead mentally of so many other creatives out there. You certainly stop throwing away as much work. You stop starting over. You stop trying to be perfect. That's a really important thing to pick up. It's okay to make mistakes. And if you can accept those mistakes and just make it a part of what you're doing, then every piece turns into some sort of success. That's about it. Slowly dropping more shadow out of here. Alright. Yeah, that's feeling good. Okay, so now for the next part of the skin. And I haven't actually done this in any of the other hands, so if you're... I could absolutely move on from this arm, but I feel like there's an opportunity here to really get this core shadow the way I would like it to, because this is going to feed into the shape behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more layer. And this layer is going to be small circles. This is one of my favorite phases to go through in pen. Again, we're not pressing hard. But what the small circles do is they take all of the lines, because again, we've just been crisscrossing these lines, and because we haven't been pressing down, all these lines are effectively just connected. They're all sitting on top of each other. They're all like layered. When you take your pen through and you start doing the small circles, you start merging and blending all of those lower lines. Because the way paper works, you're going to still see a little bit of line work and definition and cross-hatching, so to speak, but the vast majority of the lighting on these arms will be more of like a blurry mush, and that's exactly what we're going for. Push, 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 pull. Push, 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 pull. So we got some nice structure on this arm going on. You know, this extra line, it's whatever. You know, it can be some, you know, I could even pull in some of the tentacle over here and do some tentacle over there just to kind of bring that element across. It's not the end of the world if we don't. We'll deal. I know it's been a little while since I've mentioned, but again, y'all, thanks for joining me today and being present. It really means a lot. Just pushing through and trying to figure this whole streaming thing out, and start building a community. And you being here today is just the biggest compliment. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see. One thing you'll notice, look at your arm. When you do this, one side of the arm has a lot going on up here. This side of the arm is actually not a lot. You'll usually see, like, if you like really build it, you'll see like a vein going through there, a couple of veins. But for the most part, it really is about the structure that's on the top of the arm. And so that's why I'm going to kind of leave a lot of this information and detail up here and not carry it down. I am feeling this beat right now. That ain't bad. Alright, let's go ahead and just do a little bit of forced blending. Okay. Now sometimes you'll see me do that, and the reason for that is because I want to create a hotter highlight. And so in order to do that, I kind of need to take everything more to a mid-tone, and the best way to go through that with pen is just to use the pen. Use the ink that's sitting on top and not force it. Pull this guy in, pull a little loose. There we go. There we go. Use the pencil to slowly build out some of that roundness of the muscle. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going for perfection. We're not going for, this isn't going to go in some gallery. This is just something we're doing on stream for funsies and something we'll share to the team, you know, to the stream. But the better quality we can hit always is going to be a preferred method. That's better. That's feeling good. Alright. Yeah, I'm liking that. Let's give that a nice, strong, hard line. Even though I go for kind of a, I wouldn't say hyper-realism, that's not a fair assessment, but I try to lean into realism when it comes to shading and line quality. I am also just the hugest fan of using almost animation techniques in creating visual depth. I really like a strong outline. I really like a hard black outline where I can get away with it. It's not always appropriate. You don't always need to be busting out hard outlines, but there are times where it is everything. And I would say that often the hard outline for me is usually the thing that really gets my art to read its best when it's posted online, because your eye looks for boundaries. Alright. Alright, so this is one of those areas where the hair and the shadows from the arm are absolutely going to blend in together, and I don't mind that. You know, sometimes it happens. You know, you just blend the two together, it's no big deal. Make sure that you can actually see me doing the work. Okay, yeah. So we're just going to allow this hair to go dark. We're going to pull this ink down from that bit of a highlight off of the muscle on the, or off the bone off the wrist. Well, I guess muscle too, because it's muscle that's packed in around it. Tendons, so to speak. There we go. And that is going to set the tonality for the other side of the arm. And the way that we're visually connecting this arm and the arm below it is I'm going to pump some green into that shadow, and that's going to be a really clear indicator that these two are from the same body. Remember how I talked about we'd eventually come back to the hair in this area? This is that back and forth. You know, sometimes you really can't solve a piece like this hand until you've solved the larger picture of what the rest of what's attached to the hand. And in this case, I didn't want to force myself into a really weird spot with it. So I just played it cool, relaxed, left it alone. But now, I'm going to show you something really cool. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to whip this green into this hand and watch this thing come to life. Because now it's got some real variance and definition that the hair does not. And because we laid all that groundwork down below, it's all connected. Like that. I hope that's coming through on the screen. If it's not, I assure you you'll see it when I post the final digital up. But it's just what you're going to see is there's a really nice softness to these shadows that originates from the combination of the pencil and the pen combining. Oh, sorry about making the camera shake. It just occurred to me that was happening. Sorry about that. Hopefully that didn't make anybody too sick or anything. Now look at that hand. There we go. That hand to that arm now really stands out against that hair. I'll go in here and just play with some of this, darken it. Also, when you've laid down more pencil and then you go relay down more ink on it, it's almost like it's ice skating. Because you've already filled in a lot of the porous holes on the paper with the pencil. So you're genuinely floating this ink right on top of the pencil. Also keep in mind with that, when you start rubbing your hand across it, you will notice that you have a whole bunch of ink and pencil on the side of your hand, which also means you have ink and pencil smearing across your piece. That's not always a bad thing. I kind of like when that happens to some degree, but just understand and know that it's happening, right? Because you can control that. You just put another piece of paper down under your hand and voila, no harm, no foul. It's a very common technique. You'll see a lot of artists wear a glove, like a black glove. They'll do it often for digital work just because it helps them kind of slide across the glass surface, but a lot of artists would do it to avoid smudging their own work. I don't know if I necessarily fully buy into that as a necessity. I personally like the effect. I like what happens when your hand becomes an actor in your artwork. I think it can really be spectacular. Alright, there we go. Front hand's up there. Let's go ahead and use this other hand and work that guy out. You're still with me, thank you very much. Are you guys liking the music? Are you enjoying this? I think I might change this up. It's a little too chill vibes for me now. I need to kind of... Let's see. chill vibes. Let's go high energy. Let's pick it up. I don't think I like that. Never mind. Micron? Oh, that works. Let's give that a shot. Alright. Let's get going on this other arm. There it is. There it is. Sometimes you just need a good beat. Alright. I hate drawing the nail bed. I hate drawing fingernails. So what I'll usually do is I'll usually drop in just an outside line around and then develop shading to build that. And that will define the fingernail. Oh yeah. Alright. And let's go ahead and check this thing. Alright. Alright, let's keep pushing on this arm. It's kind of coming together now. You know, it's amazing when you leave this kind of stuff for last. It looks like this big hole, but then once you start laying it in and it starts closing off the piece, man, it gets cool. looking pretty good. Got our hand working there. Let's keep pushing on that. Those long lines up. This is again one of those cases where we're going to lay in just long, soft lines. We're creating a visual flow. Now you'll notice I had laid in another line that's got an angle, and I'm going to go ahead and continue that. This is one of those things where we talk about using the advantages of the way the eye works to our advantage. So we're going to pull. I'm going to drag and pull. Grab, pull. Yeah, it's working. Okay, I'm feeling that. That's working out. Working on camera. I'm okay with that. Let's push on that. Okay. sweaty, so I'm gonna get a piece of paper just to give me a little bit of a buffer. I don't want to add any more moisture to the ink underneath, and that's just more, hand perspiration. Since I'm going to be in this area for just a moment doing some inking, I can just go ahead and solve that very easily with a piece of paper. If we drop this heavy line, oh, my pen is acting a fool. There we go. Drop the line, there we go. And this is going to provide that nice heavy line between. Alright, so, if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break. I need to go put some shrimp in some cold water because we're having some shrimp and rice tonight, which would be awesome. We got it for 5. So I'll be back in 5 minutes. Feel free to hang out. I'll have the music running. I'll be right back. Short break, guys. Thank you. Go get some water. y'all. Back, and back. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for waiting. Apologies about that. I needed to go and put some shrimp in the water and use the restroom. So, back to it. So we've really gotten to the point now where we're just going to start pushing into like those really refined details. You know, it's always going to be kind of a slow process at this point. So I'll just kind of be pushing along. Again, if you are in the chat and you feel free to say hi or talk at all, let me know. I'm just kind of plugging away. So. keep doing our thing. I'm going to go ahead and make the executive decision, which is kind of hard line back here. Alright, let's see here. Okay. To my one viewer in the room, thank you for hanging out. Welcome. I see you in my chat, but you know what? I hope you're having a great day. Hoping you have a great time. Maybe I can provide some background music for you. If you'd like a different kind of music, also let me know. I don't know if mic drop's quite doing for me. A social intermission. Let's go with something a little less aggressive for now. See how that works for us. See something a little more chill. Alright. We've now got a more prominent structured shadow behind the backhand. Now it looks really prominent right now. In fact, in the camera view, it looks a lot darker than my angled view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and I'm just going to blend this shape out. So we don't need it to be a super hard dark shape. That doesn't serve us at all. Slow drag, pull, 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 pull. Pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. There we go. There we go. Alright. That's working real well. Okay, next up. So, one of the things I like is that in the camera view that you're seeing, you're actually not seeing as much of the green as I've packed onto this thing. I packed a ton of green into the pen portion, but on your screen, I think it's actually, at least what I'm seeing on the screen in front of me, it's looking really solid. And the green isn't too heavy, and I'm kind of okay with that, so I'm going to keep pushing. Yeah, I'm going to keep pushing. Alright, so this side is resolved. I think I might come in with a little bit of a white pen. Paint pens are always handy. And let's just erase this. Let's do this. Let's erase everything around this guy. Those who've never used paint pens before, paint pens are cool. You just have to use them in a very specific way. Paint pens introduce moisture onto the paper. And if you introduce moisture onto the paper, you're going to affect the mediums below that moisture. In this case, I've got a ton of Bic and I've got a ton of pencil. So a paint pen is going to smudge that. So when I'm using a paint pen, I don't drag, I dab. And if you dab, then all you're doing is delivering a repeated amount of paint over and over and over again, and you'll build up layers of the paint. And that's all I'm looking to do, is I'm looking to build up some layers of the paint so that it will not, this portion will not show up when we scan it or photograph it in. It doesn't matter that there was a mistake there, it's not the big deal. The problem was the line that was there was interrupting the visual flow, and that can't happen. This all flows a lot better. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to come in. We're going to let that dry first, actually. Let that dry and then we'll come back to it. Alright. We have to solve the top of this hand, and then we can move on to this side. So let's solve the top of this hand real quick. See, I'm just coming up here and I'm adding in some shading. Just trying to create the guys, I think I've hit a point where I'm ready to just chill out for a little while. I think we've got 2.5 hours of drawing here. Not bad. To my one viewer who's on, thank you so much for being here and sticking with me. I really appreciate it. I'll be on tonight after 11 o'clock. If you're a late night person or a night owl, feel free to come hang out with me. I will usually be on from 11 to 2 in the morning. And then I start my day tomorrow at 11 a.m. And stream for 2 hours. So I hope you have an amazing rest of your evening. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope you enjoyed the development of the artwork. This is where we're at. Oops, sorry about that. Hopefully nobody got seasick. Let's see, there we go. This is where we're at. Yeah, so we're plugging along. The real hard part's been done. Now it's just kind of doing all the hands below that and then finding all the final details. But thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to having you back on the next time I stream this evening. Have a great evening, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace, y'all.